Hi, so in this video we proceed to the equilibrium on the market of goods, this time for the open economy. So the term open economy usually refers to countries with no restrictions or minor restrictions on international trade, and you can also use it in order to describe countries with openness to trade and openness to international investment. Balance of payments stands for the record of all the transactions between a country and the rest of the world during a particular period. It is always balanced by default, so the value of balance of payments is always equal to 0. And two major components of the balance of payments are financial account, also known as capital account, which is a bit obsolete name, and current account. So therefore, balance of payments is equal to financial account plus current account. If you forget about other minor items in balance of payments, and the sum of these values is always equal to 0. So then it's easy to detect that surplus on financial account implies current account deficit and vice versa. Current account surplus implies financial account deficit. So the major component of the current account is balance of trade or net exports. It also includes net income from abroad and net current transfers. But again, if we assume that these two items are really minor in comparison to net exports, you can neglect them. And with some reasonable degree of simplification, you can say that balance of payments is equal to financial account plus net exports, and the sum is equal to 0. So again, trade surplus implies financial account deficit. Financial account surplus implies trade deficit. So when analyzing aggregate demand in open economy, it contains all the components we have discussed so far plus net export. So net export is calculated as demand of foreign consumers for domestically produced goods minus demand of domestic consumers for goods produced abroad. So export minus import. So assuming at this point that net exports is an exogenous variable, and again assuming that there is equilibrium on the market of goods in domestic economy, you can calculate the equilibrium value of output as follows. So it will be equal to autonomous demand multiplied by Keynesian multiplier. So again, assuming that there is indeed an equilibrium on the market of goods, so the value of output is equal to the value of income, and they are both equal to autonomous demand multiplied by Keynesian multiplier, you can easily detect that net exports can be calculated as savings, national savings, income minus consumption minus government spending minus investment. And here you can see the illustration. So please keep in mind that all the time we analyze small open economy. So small open economy means that there is free international trade, unrestricted international investment flow, and also it implies that domestic economy is kind of interest rate taker. So R star stands for international interest rate, or let's say world interest rate. And if we assume perfect capital mobility, like complete openness to investment, then domestic interest rate is always equal to world interest rate. So take a look here. So on the intercept of desired investment, I, and national savings, we would have equilibrium domestic interest rate However, since domestic economy has no power in affecting interest rate in the world, instead it just takes world interest rate as given. So world interest rate is an exogenous variable in this case. So for this interest rate, we have the difference between desired investment and national saving, and this difference stands for net exports. So take a look. If we are here, so world interest rate is higher than domestic interest rate in autarky, then economy becomes less attractive for potential investors to comparison to foreign economies, and financial account is on deficit and current account is on surplus. So we have positive net exports. Opposite, if world interest rate is lower than domestic interest rate in autarky, then net exports is negative. So we have trade deficit and financial account surplus. Okay, so this is the task for you. In the small open economy, government increase direct transfers in order to stimulate consumption. You have to analyze the effect of this policy on net exports. So again, you have to do it using this graph and this identity. If you'd like to practice, put this video on hold and I am proceeding with solution. Okay, so increase in direct transfers, although it cannot be recognized as the part of government spending, stimulates consumption, spending of households on goods and services. Increase in consumption decreases national savings, so we shift from this S-curve to this S-curve. And since the small open economy is assumed to be an interest rate taker, the volume of net export increases. So previously for this interest rate, this was the difference between desired investment and saving. And when we decrease national saving for this interest rate, this is the difference between desired investment and saving. And since this difference stands for net exports volume, the volume of net exports decreased. Okay, so exchange rate can be defined as the value of domestic currency expressed in terms of some foreign currency. So this is the fact. Each time domestic currency depreciates, there is increase in net exports, and when currency appreciates, there is decrease in net export. So appreciation means increase in value of domestic currency, and depreciation means decrease in the value of domestic currency. So let's analyze a very simple example, just to understand this idea. So assume we have two countries, Poland and United States. So this stands for Polish exports and this stands for Polish imports. So when it comes to Polish exports, the value of Polish exports is always initially denominated in Polish currency, because Polish producers will require payment in Polish currency, because they pay wages and rent in Polish currency, so that's why they are interested in getting this value in exchange for their goods. When it comes to US producers, it's the same. So in exchange for goods produced in the United States producers will always require fixed amount of money expressed in US dollars. Because again, they pay wages, rent and other expenses in US dollars. So assume that initial exchange rate of Polish zloty to US dollar is 3:1. So you pay 3 Polish zloty in order to get 1 US dollar. So in this case, initial value of Polish exports is equal to 100 US dollars and initial value of Polish imports is equal to 300 of Polish zlotys. However, Polish zloty depreciated, so new exchange rate is 4:1. Now you have to pay more Polish zlotys in order to get $1, which implies that now Polish zloty is less valuable, so it depreciated. So now for this exchange rate, the value of Polish goods for US consumers is equal to $75, and the value of US goods for Polish consumers is equal to 400 zlotys. So goods produced in the United States now are more expensive for Polish consumers, so they will buy less of these goods, and Polish import decreases. Analogously, for US consumers, now Polish goods are cheaper. So for the same amount of goods, you have to pay less in US dollars, which increases demand for goods produced in Poland and subsequently increases the volume of Polish exports. So after depreciation, the volume of net exports increases. And vice versa, analogously, you can do the same analysis in order to prove that appreciation leads to decrease in net exports. So there is an inverse relationship between the value of currency and the volume of export. So equilibrium exchange rate will be defined by the intercept of S minus I, national saving minus investment, and net export. So at this point, net export is equal to the difference between national saving and investment, and this equilibrium defines equilibrium exchange rate. And as I said, like here you have the value of Polish zlotys expressed in US dollars. So here you pay more US dollars per 1 Polish zloty. Here you pay less US dollars per 1 Polish zloty. So accordingly, with the higher value of Polish zloty expressed in US dollars, the volume of exports is smaller, and for lower value of Polish zloty expressed in US dollars, the volume of exports is higher. Okay, so the second task. The government imposed tariffs on foreign goods. Analyze the effects of this policy on exchange rate. Again, if you'd like to practice, put this video on hold and I will discuss the solution. So under trade restrictions, demand for net exports increases. So basically barriers to trade or tariffs imply that foreign goods become more expensive for domestic consumers and they buy less foreign goods and more domestic goods. So basically, due to the decrease in imports, the demand for net exports increases in the domestic economy. So we have rightward shift of net exports curve, and as the result, equilibrium exchange rate increases. So there is appreciation after imposing tariffs on foreign goods. Third task. As the result of high levels of inflation in the domestic economy, domestic currency depreciated. Analyze the effects of this change on net export and investment. So basically, depreciation of domestic currency means increase in net exports, as we discussed before. And this also implies increase in the volume of national saving. So as for net exports curve, since we have, exchange rate as the variable, in this model, like for net exports, we simply move along the net exports curve from this point to this point. So from point corresponding to the higher value of domestic currency to the point corresponding to lower value of domestic currency. So as for national saving, the volume of imports will decrease as the result of this policy and exports will increase. So as a result, national saving will increase and we have the shift of S minus Y curve, and we end up here at the point with bigger volume of net export and lower value of exchange rate. Like using this graph, you can do very similar analysis. Like if there is increase in the volume of while we assume that desired investment function is not affected, for the world interest rate, now you have bigger volume of export than you used to have before. So domestic investment will increase as the result of domestic currency depreciation. Okay, so that was it, and thank you for watching.